Hey, what's up, YouTube? So today we're gonna have a little bit of a treat, right? So it turns out Blade Vortex is a very, very good skill. I really enjoy the playstyle. I switched over to aspect of the avian, but that's probably not what most people want to talk about, right? People want to talk about this Reddit thread about this warning regarding my recent budget or stacker video. Something about yada yada that's not 30 exalts and that some of the pricing was a little fudgeted. So I'm gonna try to go over all of this costs, but instead of just like saying, "Oh, this guy is completely wrong," because he does bring up some good points about how some of the stuff got more expensive and some of the stuff did get more expensive. But rather than complaining about the problem, right, we want to find a solution to the problem. So I'm gonna try to go over all the pieces of gear I included in my budget section, and I'm gonna present an alternative method or item in order to get the build to be once again down to around like 30ish x range. Now, a lot of people are so hung up on the fact that it's 30 exalts, right? But the cost of any build is always going to be fluid, especially when you release a video and there's other people trying to buy the items out, whether for personal gain or for to just play the build. So any price should always be taken with a grain of salt. But the other thing is you have to include a price, right? People want to know how many exalts you actually spent on the build, just so they have a ballpark estimate about how much money they need to save. Like, it's just something to work towards, right? And just because a video says budget on it does not mean the video is catered towards a budget build where someone expects it to be all rare items or with HP and resist. Like a budget aura stacker, while the budget is in reference to an aura stacker build where people expect the cost to be a minimum of like 50 to 100 exalts for it to be working in order to do all the content. Every time people come on my stream, they also always ask me like, what's the minimum amount of exalts to do it? And the whole point of this video and the previous guide video was to show that you only needed around 30 to 50 exalts, somewhere around there, depending on how marked up the price is. And it could be even lower if you didn't want a bottle of faith. And it is just to show them that you can do it on a budget. You can actually play the build in the beginning and have fun with the game, do the bosses, and slowly farm up currency for upgrades. Like, the Aura Stacker is a build for people who desire the character progression of slowly getting their build stronger and stronger. Other people want a build like that's just strong at the start and the end. Like, they can't really upgrade it. Its build is pretty capped out, and that's how a lot of attack builds are. The Aura Stacker is a build with a lot of multiplier scaling, so one multiplier being low is going to drastically reduce the damage, and that's not even to say two multipliers. It's just like you look at the Blade Vortex damage, right? Right now it's 71,000, right? We turn off one aura, precision, no big deal, 57,000. You want to turn off another one? 31,000. Literally half damage from two auras, and it's just some multiplicative scaling. And that's just the way the build works. So that's why this build is very satisfying to see how each piece of gear increases the, your damage by so much. And every single piece is meaningful upgrades, and that's why people like playing the build. The budget is just a number for people to aim for, but like I say, you should not play the build until you buy every single piece of gear. So you should not sell off your entire gear set and try to play the build until you have every single piece of gear bought. If you want to sell off the gear, make sure that you can afford it by checking PoE trade for the price of the items that are remaining at the time that you're trying to do it at. But I'm going to first go over my own gear overview because I know some people are still kind of interested in what I did in order to make the Blade Vortex character a little better. And I do believe the clear speed is a lot faster on the build now. So let's get quickly into the gear overview before we get into the good stuff about the Aura Stacker's actual cost. So for the gear, we have pretty much the exact same nebula, same helm. Pretty much every single piece is the same, right? I did try a Zealotry Call of the Brotherhood. It is actually in my stash, but it turns out Zealotry just does not work, because Zealotry is a 50% aura. So moving another 50% aura to our life pool means that we don't have another 50% aura to put on the Prism Guardian, which makes it incredibly inefficient. So what I did was I dropped Dread Banner, and now I'm running Aspect of Avian, which actually helps out with the move speed a lot, because this build is kind of capped out by your move speed and how fast you can run through the map. So it's just a offense versus defense thing. So if you want to have more survivability, you would run Dread Banner. If you want a little more speed, you would run Aspect of the Avian. And for jewels, I pretty much just upgraded these to reduce reservation of skills. This one, magnifier vast power, a magnifier vast power. I was able to pick these up pretty cheap. Again, this is another item where even though I was able to buy it for 3 to 5x, it would probably be very hard for people to buy it now, right? Because it's a very limited supply. So you have to keep that in mind when doing it. And overall, the tree is pretty similar. I think I added some extra jewels with reservation of skills and area of effect. So this whole build is like pretty niche, right? So if someone wants to copy this, just make sure that you could actually afford these reservation of area of skills and area of effect, because the cost, because you do need quite a few of them, and it is very rare on the market to have a lot of these up at the same time. It is actually incredibly hard to buy multi for spells with global crit multi. I think I only saw one jewel up the whole time, so you need something like this for the jewel to be double multi, which is why it's a lot harder to scale Blade Vortex damage compared to Penance Brand, when Penance Brand is an elemental, lightning, fizz, and spell skill, and generic multi. So that's why the Blade Vortex is kind of a hard budget option to do. I'll try to make a budget guide for it, because I believe that Blade Vortex is really fun to play, and it's all about playing like your own skill that you like for Aura Stacker, right? Because that's the beauty of the build, is that you can play any skill and it'll probably be a really top tier build for that specific skill. And if you get tired of the skill, you can switch over from Spark. You can play Blade Vortex, you can play Penance Brand, you can play Storm Brand, and all it takes is just some gem adjustments, cluster jewel adjustments, and some gear adjustments too. But anyhow, let's get into the meat of this video, which is going to be, is this build actually 30x when I made the video, and what can you do to actually make the build more affordable? So these are pretty much the price of the items that was in the video that caused so much debate on Reddit. So this is Alpha's Howl with enchant. So I'm gonna try to look up some of these items. So I pretty much am gonna go through my shopping cart and look at the prices of items and compare them to what they are now. So Alpha's Howl, 50, 60, 80 chaos, probably a little on the high side. Now keep in mind, when I'm doing this, it is at nighttime, so the prices are probably a lot higher. So you can pretty much adjust this to be a little higher. So this is a cool trick you can use to see. So in order to show when it was listed, you can just do listed up to 3 days ago. So this is around the time that the video would have been out, 3 days ago when I searched it up. So you don't see all of these from like 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago. And it's pretty useful. So you can see it's probably around 50 chaos around the time of the video, and you could probably still pick it up for around 50 chaos. Depends on the time of day. Right now it's nighttime, 60 chaos. You can get this on ID somehow. What the heck? So Alpha's Howl is correct. Now we move on to Amulet. Now Amulet, I know I checked this, it was actually really expensive. 5 exalts. I bought this amulet for 20 chaos, and again you can see what it looks like. So you set this again to listed 3 days ago. It was actually 2 exalts. So there's some trickery going on here where the amulet is a lot more expensive. So what we can do is we can just get only reservation of skills. So even with just multi, right, you are pretty much unable to get one for really cheap. Because let's see, online right now with multi. So this is actually a pretty good one right here, right? For 50 chaos, you can get reservation of skill. So you just need to adjust the multi parameter to be a little lower. I had it pretty high because there was a lot of amulets, but that's why with the shopping cart, you can adjust these things, put in the numbers you want, and it'll be a lot better. So this amulet is actually pretty good. You can craft on percent ES. You have gain percent of physical as extra cold, extremely strong. This one is also okay. So you can say like this item is obviously a lot more expensive now. So it's probably around 1x. So you can probably adjust this up, right, to 1 exalt. And then with the cost of the anointment, it's a little bit more. 6-link shavs. I mean, like the person in the thread mentioned that I bought the shavs at a discount, but come on, everyone, when they try to buy an item, they try to get as good of a price as possible, right? So shavs, let's see what it goes up to. Chevrons, wrappings, right? 6-linked. Still 3.7x. Is this really far off the price of 3.5x? I really have no idea what the person's talking about, right? If you don't think you can get the shavs for around 3.5x, then you've got to be trolling or something, right? Darkness Enthroned. Do we even need to look this up? Darkness and Throne. Did I even put it on the list? It's still a 3 Chaos Stygian. Stuff like this, you really cannot affect the price. 2 Chaos even. Yeah, so stuff like that is pretty much all going to be the same. Gloves. Now, this is a pretty big one, right? So face breakers are something that is kind of like, it's something of a really low supply, but it is also something that, yeah, so you can see there's only 3 items, right? But if you look at any price, you can see that during the type of the video, it's 25 Chaos a day ago, right? 3 days ago. In fact, for the one I used in a video, I used a bad one because I used a +1/+2 instead of +2/+2 because I didn't put a level 4 in power in there. So it turns out that I was pretty much using +3. Now, the thing is, you don't need to use a face breaker, right? You can use Hands of the High Templar, and it's pretty much going to be around... it's around the same price, right? 2x. But you can see that there's other options besides face breakers for this pair of gloves. So the gloves actually were, I guess, a portion that became a lot more expensive because the supply of the face breakers were so low. So I guess for that portion, it is fair to say that you could probably have to use like a 2x pair of gloves now. Doriani's Illusion will probably just be an item that stays relatively the same. It has a pretty big supply, 20 Chaos still, especially how it's a Vol Reliquary key item. So let's move on to the next one. Prism Guardian, I don't think it would change. Call of the Brotherhoods, it wouldn't change. Let's just check it out real fast, just for clarity's sake. So where is Prism Guardian? Did I even include Prism Guardian in the list? I don't even think so. But Call of the Brotherhood should be the same, right? 20 Chaos. Around there, yeah, 20 Chaos. There's just too many of these items for the prices to change, really. So then we will move on. Is this the Prism Guardian? Or... yeah, Prism Guardian. This one is still like 60 Chaos. It's actually lower than the price, 60, 70 Chaos. Actually lower than the price of what I stated. So now you get into, what's it called, the Nebulous. The Nebulous I saw was a thing that went up in price a lot. I know multi is really good. So it says 2 exalts, right? But it's obviously just like people are buying the good roll ones because I have this in my cart. So all you have to do is you do this, right? Remove the rolls. You can see there's Nebuluses for 20 Chaos, 21 Chaos, 25 Chaos. Buy this and just Divine Orbit. The only reason why it's so expensive is because people are taking the items from the shopping cart and literally just buying up the ones that it shows up, trying to raise the price, or I don't know what's going on. But buy one of these Nebuluses. They're pretty much the same as the one in my video, and you can just divine it for 1 or 2, hopefully get lucky, or maybe these rolls are good enough, honestly. But in all honesty, most of the stuff is pretty much identically priced. The ones that are the big ones that are different, someone else already did this. Like, so this guy set it up. So 4x for the face breakers is the one that's the outlier, and 4x for the shavs. But this was actually, I saw a 3.7x. And this one for a 50 Cena Divine, so you can get 140, see about good rolls, 50 Cena Divine. See, this person made it pretty good on the build. So now we're going to move over to the jewels section, right? So the jewels section, most of the stuff is all identical. So we're going to focus on the ones that are red. And this is Purposeful and First Among Equals and the Glorious Vanity. Now the Glorious Vanity that we have is one that we have shown multiple times that you're able to get it in the Discord. So you go into the Legion Want to Buy section, right? So Legion Jewel Want to Buy. You type in Control F Glorious and you PM one of these people. So what you're looking for is around 20% for 4 points or so. And you can see that, as I saw yesterday, wait, this is in the Want to Buy section. So you need the Want to Sell section. So Glorious. So some people are obviously going to overprice it. So like this person wants 25% for 18 Exalt. But that's not really the real worth for something just because someone wants it. So this person has 40% aura effect for 10x. That's pretty relatively affordable, right? It obviously is not good for the budget, but there were multiple people who had it relatively cheap for this, for like 26% for 5x. And this is actually not too bad of one, right? So you can find ones for 5x, for 3x. Like, yeah, when I was making a video, I saw one for 20% for 3 points for 3x, 5x. And the fact of the matter is that those glorious vanities are not very good. Like, yeah, there will be people who will try to overprice it, and it's just the way it is. But you will be able to find ones that are relatively cheaper, because the glorious vanity market is honestly kind of lowish. So there's always going to be people who will sell it as they don't sell that well. But just watch out for buying one that is relatively affordable. Like this one is 23%, so a lot of people will sell it for quite a lot. But there's always going to be someone selling it for relatively cheap. It's just a matter of finding it or putting it in the want to buy section, because some people have it and they'll look to sell it that way. It's a very interesting item, Glorious Vanity. It's hard to say the exact price of it, just because one person gets it for a certain cost, other people might not. Like some people buy the 755 6 jewel, which is 48% for 7 for like 20x, but other people buy it for 180x. So what's the real cost of the item, right? So that's why like all these budgets are kind of variable. You can't really know for sure. So this is the other one that's in contention. 2 purposeful first among equals. Now this was an item that I never thought would get that expensive, because let's just say I thought there was enough supply to go around, but it turns out that the supply is just pretty low. And the funny part is purposeful replenishing is actually a better jewel than purposeful first among. Duration is nowhere near as good as 1%, and this is harder to roll than first among purposeful. But because of the guide I wrote and the fact that I had it so that I wrote it so I was looking for first among purposefuls, it turns out that the people are trying to like redo the price. So you can see that this person here has bought multiple of these to reprice it, right? So you have to watch out for that, because first among purposeful is worse than replenishing purposeful. So this is like 6x or so, right? So what you can do for this is you could just use one purposeful and not have these first among replenishing. And you can choose something called Sublime Form. So these are ones that lower the cost of the aura. So you can, this is 100 chaos, right? So this has Grace Reduced Reservation. So you just use 1 extra point. You lose 3% aura effect, but you gain the fact that you get a lot more RMR. So this will free up your RMR slots. So this is one approach to how you can find a solution for this incredibly overpriced jewel. Because like this is it's much better to spend 100 chaos on this or 120 chaos, because there's other ones that I can include, like Pure Aptitude is pretty good if you're empowering your discipline. This one here is what, like 100 chaos too, right? So yeah, so you use that 1 exalt or so. So you can find other options. Like just because I provided the shopping cart for the stuff and it gets sniped up does not mean that there's no other options to make the budget work. And that's just how it is. Like stuff like Bottle Faith, yeah, it might be 14x now, but the price varies widely. Like what's Bottle Faith right now? And the whole notion that you need a Bottle Faith to play, like 13.8x, like is that really that far of a cry from 13.3x? Like this is someone who actually calculated it all out. He actually went through all of it after the video, and I don't know who did it, but I really like what this person did with Excel spreadsheet highlighting the things that are out of touch. So he had it at 43.48x. So just alone, if you take away the 14x from the Bottle Faith, it is a 30 exalt build. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts, but at the moment of the video and recording, it's 30 exalts without the Bottle Faith. And this doesn't include the fact that you can use a comparable Hands of the High Templar for 2 exalts. You can even use Malagaros if you really wanted to go there, right? Like there's no thing that says you can't use any substitutes. There's always substitutes for these items that are slightly expensive, right? So it's up to the person to decide what they want to do. Like I don't know if there's a +2 Malagaros. Let's see if there's actually a +2 Malagaros, right? But actually we can just look up Corrupted to see what people have for Corrupted, because there's always going to be other options out there. Man, do people actually have AoE gems, aura gems? Because even a +2 Malagaros could be pretty good, right? So if you have aura gems, so these are the main ones you want to look for: aura gems and duration gems. Let's see if there's even one of these up for sale. Malagaros is a little harder because, so it's like 30 chaos. So you're telling me you can't use a 30 chaos or 100 chaos item or 1x item? It's gonna be pretty good still. So you can say that these gloves are like 2x. The jabs is pretty much the same price. So you shave off 2x right there. It's at 41.5x, let's say. And then these jewels, you can shave off 8x. So that's 33.5x. And Glorious is around 3x. So it's around like 30. You can say it's like around like 35x even after some of the price increases because of the video. And it just comes out of this one jewel that everyone is in such an uproar about. Yeah, this jewel had a very limited supply, but let's try to find solutions instead of just saying, oh, the build is undoable at 30 exalts, because there are solutions, like I said. And the solution is to use purposeful harbingers with notables that reduce your aura reservation. So Sublime Form, Pure Aptitude, I think Pure Might is okay. And I think there's like Pure Guile, right? So these are the purities. Sublime Form is the best since it's a 50%. Pure Aptitude is good because it gives you 1% regen. Yeah, so there's plenty at around like 0.8 to 1x around that region. And that just means you have to take an extra passive point somewhere. And another thing to mention is that people also said something about the level of the build. And the level of the build is 99, right? But if you just drop these nodes right here, like sure, your damage will be a little worse, but these nodes are not 100% necessary. And this brings you down to level 95. And the Glorious Vanity is over here. And this one I actually did buy for like 6x or 7x, but you can get it for cheaper, like I said, and showed you in the Discord how to do. But overall, this pop is not really anything like crazy. You can take out the power charge, you have Flask active, and you have Cyrus checked 9.6, 10 mil. You should do max explosion per brand. And then, yeah, the damage is still pretty respectable, even with this whole setup around there. And even at 95. So you can do all the content with this. And the fun part is, every time you level up, you'll gain a lot of damage. Every time you get an upgrade with multi, you'll get a lot more damage. And this whole chart, I hope, will illustrate the pieces of gear that have gotten more expensive and how you can work around it. Because someone did the math afterwards, and it turns out that you can play the build on 30x even if you bought this at the high end stuff. You to subtract 13.3x from the bottle faith, you put it right at 30x. You do not need a bottle faith to play. Like, I'm pretty sure if you even go on PoE Ninja right now, let's go check it out real fast. How many people actually have a bottle faith? Because I know I didn't have a bottle faith when I first started out. So a lot of people have bottle faith, but 84%. So you can play the build without a bottle faith. Look at all these people who are playing without a bottle faith. Like, this is a budget build. Like, you do not need a bottle faith to play. What happened to this guy's character? Like, this is just a baseline of starting out. And the build is still going to be relatively good. Like, what do these people replace it with? A granite flask or something. So, aura stacking is definitely viable at 30x. You will just need to find different solutions. But to say the build is not playable, it can't do all content, is just a flat out lie. And Bottle Faith is a huge chunk of the cost. And I know it is a lot to ask for, to have a Bottle Faith in a budget build. But a Bottle Faith is actually an amazing flask, and it is one of the first upgrades I would get. And I think that should help clarify it. I mean, looking at this chart, it should be very apparent that, yeah, the main things that got more expensive is this, but everything I bought was on stream, and it was around for that price. So hopefully that clarifies the whole mishap with how much the build actually costs, and hopefully I presented some solutions for these items in red that got a lot more expensive. Please consider Malagaros with +2s, or you can consider Hands of the High Templars with +4s. And this Shabs is around the same price. So everything else is relatively the same. We looked through it all together, and I hope that the whole like Reddit thread does not dissuade you from playing the build. Like, even if it is more than 30x or if it's 40x or so, because stuff goes up in price, the best way to approach buying a build is to just make sure you've bought all the pieces before swapping. So if you can't afford all the pieces yet, buy it like slowly, but get some good deals for it. And then as you can afford everything, then sell off the gear that on your current build, and then try to buy everything else all together and fit it all together that way. Because that's the best way to buy a build. That allows you to get better upgrades. Trying to buy everything at once is probably a mistake. It may seem it's good, but that's why the TFT build section exists, because it does take a while to buy a full build, and it does take a long time to get everything together. So that's why people actually charge a premium for the builds on the TFT. It's not because they're trying to like rip you off. It's because time is money and it benefits both sides. But I hope that clarifies the cost. And yeah, I'm going to show a clip or two of today's maps with the Blade Vortex guy. And the clear is honestly as crazy as it's ever been. And yeah, hope you enjoyed them. Overall, I hope like me going over the budget of the build and showing everyone that it can be done on the actual budget I outlined. Because this is from someone else who did the audit. I didn't actually come up with the spreadsheet. And I did address the points here with the purposeful first among and the face breakers and the shafts. So you can see everything else is actually on point. So I don't know what all the ordeal was or the fuss was about, but don't let it. If you want to play ore stacking, try it out. I know 30x is 40x or whatever is a lot of exalts to a lot of people, but I think in the end it's more of a you probably need to find a way to make the currency, right? Because a lot of people say they play a lot but they aren't able to make the currency. So one of the biggest tips I have is to just always be in a map. The less downtime you have, the better, unless you're like trying to flip items or something. You play the game, you do the Atlas region passives that you enjoy doing. You spawn Awakener, you kill Awakener, or you can sell Awakener even for 1x, 1.5x. If you can't kill him, you'll get the drops, you'll get Elder maps, you'll get Shaper maps to sell with your Atlas bonus, and that's just how you get currency. You'll get a Synthesis map to sell, you'll get an Exalt drop here and there. So just keep doing maps, alch the maps, don't do minus max if you don't want to die, and you'll make currency. Probably make some more videos in the future about how to farm currency for beginners, because it seems like that's the main issue. Like people try to think of like 30x as like this huge number to overcome, but if you have a strategy and you just keep mapping and you have a solid league starter build or beginner build, then you should be able to obtain the currency to play any build. It sucks to not be able to play certain builds because the currency requirement is so high, which is why I enjoy doing these budget things. Now, budget for ore stacker is not the budget for a league starter build or someone's first build in the league, and I actually understand that. And I do want to help out everyone. So if you like the content of this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be doing a lot more Blade Vortex testing. I do think Blade Vortex has the potential to be one of the best all-around skills for Blade Vortex at full investment. And I hope you guys will join me on this journey. I will probably on stream do a live test with Valdo Faith with this budget setup at actually a 30 exalt level, just to show that it can be done, and because it's fun doing bosses without perfect mirror gear. But hope you tuned into the stream for that. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. And I hope this clears up everything about the actual cost of the build and how effective it would be and what other options you can use. Be sure, don't just take the shit shopping cart at heart. Make sure to like look into the stuff, see if there's any alternatives if possible. And make sure to stop by and ask me if you have any questions on stream or in the comments below. And thank you for watching, everyone. And I hope you find more mirrors than I do.